My name is Guy Alberghini. This is a broadcast of the United States Constitution. Each broadcast will cover a very small section of the Constitution, policies that go against that section of the Constitution, as well as possible solution or solutions. If you just go along with the bad policies, then you agree with them. And if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Hi, welcome back to the broadcast. My name is Guy Alberghini. We have a special guest here again tonight, another friend from the Larouche Organization, Lynne Speed. Lynne, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you for inviting me.
And you could take it away.
Okay. Well, our topic today, we've been doing a series of events on the subject, I guess you would call it, the revolution at 250. As I hope all of you know, we are now into the year of celebrating 1 year celebration of the 250th anniversary of the birth of our nation. That will sort of be official July 4th of 2026 will be the official 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. But really that begins now, or it began with the first shots of the American Revolution, which were fired in April at Lexington and Concord. And I think this is very, very important for us to get back to and to reestablish the principles that founded this nation, particularly in this crisis today. The preamble of our Constitution says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America." To form a more perfect union. This is a continuing process. It is not a finished process. And we see today, particularly in the possible hope for peace, not just between Russia and Ukraine, but finally a situation where the United States may have an opportunity to come into its full maturity. And with that, mankind into its full maturity to stop this endless series of no-win wars. And I think this hope was particularly exemplified, in no way completed. The story is out on what will actually occur with this, but it's a hopeful sign that you did finally have a meeting between the presidents of the United States, Trump, and the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. This was something that the international oligarchy, particularly led by the British oligarchs, the City of London, had tried desperately for a period of years to stop, to prevent. And in fact, as was said at the meeting, there hadn't been any meetings, there hadn't even been any discussion, period, for almost 6 years. So this is a very, very important first step, and particularly the centrality of the idea of economic development, the Bering Straits, which was alluded to more than one time, the kind of idea of a global land bridge of economic development where people are united in the idea of creating a better situation to promote the general welfare not only for themselves, but for their children, their grandchildren, or posterity. So what I want to talk today, because it's also very important that we get at the truth of what the American Revolution was all about, which is neither the woke version. Everything was bad. Everything, there were slaves and there were slave masters. That, of course, is not the truth. Or is it true that this was a revolution that was simply to create in America an imitation of the British Empire, and it was just lily white uh, um, plantation owners that ran things. The American Revolution, from its inception, was really melting pot doesn't quite capture it, but it was a diverse mixture of everybody, because it was about a principle, it was about an ideal, it was about creating a nation which truly would be a beacon of hope and a temple of liberty for all of mankind. And albeit there were many flaws in that, and we can discuss that in the course of things, that was the intent. That was the principle. That was the principle which Lincoln alluded to during the Civil War, and that was the principle which, once again, 100 years after that, Dr. Martin Luther King came back at the Lincoln Memorial to the same idea. So what I wanted to talk about today was who's in the boat. And I think that if we can have the slides, we have a beautiful metaphorical representation of who it was that created the American Revolution, what forces were involved. And I'm going to use this beautiful painting by Emanuel Leutze to illustrate that. This, of course, is Washington's Crossing. Everybody knows it, at least from the reproductions that have been seen probably more widely almost than anything else with respect to the Revolution. And the painting hangs currently at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's huge, and you'll see in a minute sort of its proportions. But this, of course, depicts Washington's famous retreat, or rather his crossing of the Delaware River from Pennsylvania to launch a surprise attack against the Hessian troops, the British mercenary troops who were stationed at Trenton. Now, this picture takes place at a very precarious moment. In August, late August of 1776, we'll be coming up on the anniversary in just a few days, there was a first major battle of the Revolution, the Battle of Long Island, or otherwise known as the Battle of Brooklyn, in which Washington's Continental Army, which by then had numbered about 24,000, was resoundingly defeated by the British. And Washington began a retreat, first up through New York, and there you can see some of what I'm talking about, going north to Fort Lee, where they were once again defeated by the British, and then over to or Fort Washington, which is on the Manhattan side, then over to Fort Lee. And from Fort Lee, the British were after them. They actually scale the cliffs in that Bergen County area, and an opportunity to see that just actually a couple of days ago. And these are almost a sheer cliff. And so it totally surprised Washington, who was in Hackensack. I don't think I have a pointer here, but if people can just look No, I don't have any way of pointing that. Anyway, they go from Fort Lee to and Hackensack, and they retreat all the way down and then cross the river and go into Pennsylvania. By December of that year, Washington has gone from 24,000 men to only 2,400 under his direct command. And it looks like if there is not a bold initiative taken, that the entire revolution could be over at that moment. So that's the context in which they launch this extraordinary and some might even say miraculous in that it was successful action on the evening of December 25th, 1776. This painting is by German-born, German-American Emanuel Leutze, who completed the painting in Germany in 1850. This was a period of revolutionary upsurge that was taking place throughout Europe. And the painting came to the United States in 1851. It was actually put on display during the Sanitary Commission fair, which was done to raise money during the Civil War for the Union cause and to create hospitals and so on for the Union Army. And that'll give you a sense of the size of it. So there it is hanging in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Now, before we discuss more on the painting, what I'd like to do is just point out a few things about the history of the founding of the United States, of our republic, which are unique and which, in fact, the painting, I think, in many ways does reflect. One, the United States is the longest continuous federal constitutional republic in the world, albeit with flaws. So it's kind of funny because you have these many ancient and wonderful civilizations, China, India, Europe, with a long history and so on. And people don't often think of the United States as being the oldest in anything, but we're the oldest continual constitutional republic in the world. Secondly, the U.S. was founded by a global conspiracy, and a conspiracy that actually goes back over a millennium. In many ways, you could trace it to the networks, the Platonic networks around Socrates and others, based on the principle of the general welfare, the common good, and it had an idea that all of mankind would participate in that. Finally, in the opening of the Declaration, and I would urge everyone to read it and reread it over this period, but the opening of the Declaration says, "The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world." So in other words, right from the onset, from the opening of the Declaration of Independence, the founding fathers, the authors of the Declaration, are not addressing simply Americans. They're addressing the entire world. They're addressing their contemporaries. They're also addressing posterity, emphatically us today. And many people from every walk of life throughout America, as well as around the world, rose to that occasion. Support of foreign nations and individuals were crucial to the victory of the revolution. This included active support from France, Spain, the Netherlands, Russia. Morocco, incidentally, has the longest standing friendship organization. And actually, I think the first official embassy in the world is in Morocco. They have a friendship treaty that dates from 1777. Other nations include Venezuela, Haiti, a significant contingent of over 500 free men of color who were known as the Chasseurs Volontaires of Saint-Domingue, which is President Haiti, fought alongside American and French troops in the siege of Savannah in 1779. And several participants of that unit later were crucial in the struggle with Toussaint Louverture for Haitian independence. And of course, you had the critical participation of networks created by Gottfried Leibniz in England, Scotland, Germany, and Ireland. So the final point is the American Revolution is unique in that people of every background, every ethnic origin, every religion, every social status participated. The rich, the poor, black, white, yellow, red, free and enslaved, men and women, Native Americans, those of European, Ibero-American, and African origin, all fought side by side. They may have had different notions of liberty, but they were all absolutely united in the idea of a higher cause, a higher ennobled sense. Again, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And everyone worked that they might create a better world for their children and grandchildren based on that notion. And there you have our declaration. So now to some of the slides. This is just Washington arriving in Cambridge on the June 15th, actually, of 1775. This is Washington with his manservant, Billy Lee. And Billy Lee was a slave, born a slave. He was freed by Washington on his death, but he was much more than that. And there are many, many stories. And if we have enough time at the end, I'll tell a couple of them. But Billy Lee was one of the, Washington was an excellent horseman. And it was well known that virtually no one could keep up with him in the field, with the sole exception of Billy Lee. Billy Lee was also entrusted to keep all of Washington's personal papers, a very honored and important position of trust for Washington. Okay, and there we have the full painting again. Okay, now I want to go through a couple of the details in this painting. You have here in the center of the painting, just go back and forth so you get the perspective. And you can see here, there's standing in the blue and buff uniform, there's Washington. Next to Washington is Monroe, the future lieutenant at that time, James Monroe, the fifth president of the United States. And coincidentally, Monroe was one of only, I think, 2 or 3 people who were wounded in the Battle of Trenton. Monroe was virtually almost fatally wounded. His life was saved by a doctor who he had recruited just the night before on the march to Trenton. You see in front of Monroe the in the white frilly coat, a member white linen frock. It's ruffled, it's fringed, etc. If you can see it there, it's this is one of Smallwood's silk stocking Maryland regiment, and these were people who were quite wealthy, but also fearlessly. They lost 250 out of 270 men defending the retreat of the army at the Battle of Brooklyn, which I mentioned earlier. So here were people who you might say had nothing to lose. They were wealthy, they were planners, etc. Yet you had that kind of sacrifice of life, uh, the ultimate sacrifice, as well as their liberty and their sacred honor as a result of the campaign for that higher purpose. And in front of them, in the black kind of boat coat and oil hat, is a prosperous Baltimore merchant. Okay, this is now the bow of the boat, the front of the boat, and in the very front, you see a West backcountry rifleman steering, identified by his hunting shirt and deerskin leggings. Right next to him, you see a Scottish American identified by his Balmoral tartan hat. And then very significantly, right behind the Scottish American, there is a Black American who is dressed in the uniform of the Marblehead fisherman. He wears a short blue tarpaulin jacket. It was the skilled Marblehead unit which had successfully saved Washington's army from almost certain destruction after the Battle of Long Island and Brooklyn. And here they are saving them once again, rowing them across the Delaware. There was an extremely substantial presence of Black Americans throughout the New England militia units. And this was particularly true of Colonel Glover's unit, which was somewhat unique because these are people who had worked together as fishermen. And when you're out in the Atlantic in extremely cold and harsh and dangerous waters, you are relying not on what someone's position is or what their wealth or status or anything of that sort. You're relying on their courage. You're relying on their ability to cooperate with others, and you're relying on their intellect. So this is how people rose in the ranks working together in these fishermen units. And then Colonel Glover, John Glover from Marblehead, Massachusetts, insisted that you had the same standard. You kept the same orientation with respect to the military units. And there were big arguments with Washington, and this is one of the reasons why Washington, in succession, allowed more and more concessions actually to Black soldiers, including by the end of the war, you actually had Black officers at the siege of Yorktown in 1781. Baron Closen, a German officer in the French regiment, estimates that 1/4 of the American army at Yorktown were Black men. What's our timing now?
We have a little less than 5 minutes.
Okay. This is the front panel or the central panel again. And you'll see in the front in the red coat and kind of androgynous figure, possibly a woman with red flowing shirts. Many women join the military, sometimes disguised to be with their husbands. Sometimes they were just patriots. There's a central figure. These are farmers from New Jersey and Pennsylvania. They don't even have coats. They have literally blankets over them, which was actually the case of that kind of poverty at this point with most of the army. And one is obviously very sick and wounded with head bandages. And this is the stern of the boat, a Native American, which you can see he also wears the Western hunting shirt. But if you see the features and also the moccasins on his feet, clearly a Native American. So everybody's in the boat. There's Lloyd's name, 1861. And then finally, this is the spot on the Pennsylvania side where Washington crossed the Delaware. You can't see it very well behind me. They do a reenactment there every year around Christmas time. And actually, over 60% of the time, the boats are not able to get across this spot in the river as a result of the currents, which are very it goes, if you're going straight across, you're actually heading downstream. So to keep the boat going straight and to prevent the boat from really spinning around, even when it is not completely inclement conditions, is very, very difficult. And they many times have to stop it without the boat getting across. So we'll just end there. This is part, as I said, of a series of many, many interesting things about the American Revolution. And I want to urge and encourage everyone in their towns, in their localities, to actually research what happened, try to get at the true stories, try to get at, and it's not going to be good or bad. It's very interesting that you could have such a diverse group of people coming together around a common idea for the general welfare, for posterity, for the future. And I think that has a profound importance for what we can do today. So I'll just stop there because we're close to the end. And if there's any final remarks or questions,
that was
go ahead.
amazing, Lynn. The first time I ever heard the breakdown about who was actually in the boat. Although, I've been to that site once and saw the painting many times, and just the 10 days in Trenton is so much to cover. And looks like it's a wrap. So if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Thanks, Lynn, for being here. See you next broadcast.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching this broadcast. As it says at the beginning of the preamble, we the people. That's you, that's myself. Are you part of the solution or part of the problem? One way to tell is if you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. So call, email, meet with your reps and senators, local leaders, tell them what they should be doing. They govern with the consent of the governed, and if you don't tell them what to do, it's implied that you agree with them and they're doing what you want them to do. So thank you very much again, and look forward to seeing you to the next broadcast.